trying to kill him and failing just pisses him off.
Very carefully to what I'm about to tell you. I remember.
Haunted by his past and hunted by the CIA, Jason Bourne races across the globe for the truth. Every move brings him closer to uncovering the conspiracy that made him who he is. This is Cinema Reviews, and today we break down The Bourne Ultimatum. The Bourne Ultimatum is a 2007 spy action thriller directed by Paul Greengrass. While it carries the title of Robert Ludlum's 1990 novel, the storyline is completely original, serving as the third entry in the Jason Bourne film franchise after The Bourne Identity, 2002, and The Bourne Supremacy, 2004. The screenplay was crafted by Tony Gilroy, Scott Z. Burns, and George Nolfi, adapted from a story outlined by Gilroy. Matt Damon returns as Jason Bourne, the former CIA assassin struggling with amnesia. The supporting cast includes Julia Stiles, David Strathairn, Scott Glenn, Paddy Considine, Edgar Ramírez, Albert Finney, and Joan Allen. This installment follows Bourne's relentless pursuit of the truth about his past and his role in Operation Treadstone, while he becomes hunted by another elite assassin program, produced by the Kennedy Marshall Company in collaboration with Ludlum Entertainment. The movie premiered at ArcLight Hollywood on July 25, 2007, before its wide release in the U.S. on August 3 through Universal Pictures. The film was highly praised by critics, many of whom considered it the strongest entry in the series. It turned $444.1 million worldwide on a $110 million budget, making it Damon's most successful lead role at the time. Recognized as one of the top 10 films of 2007 by the National Board of Review, it later won all three of its Academy Award nominations at the 80th Oscars, including Best Film Editing, Best Sound Mixing, and Best Sound Editing. A continuation without Damon, The Bourne Legacy, was released in August 2012. While a fifth film directly following Ultimatum and bringing Damon back as the lead, simply titled Jason Bourne, came out in July 2016. After being hunted by Carol, Jason Bourne escapes the Moscow police despite his injuries and continues to experience flashbacks of his recruitment into Operation Treadstone. 6 weeks later, CIA Deputy Director Pamela Landy presents Director Ezra Kramer with the taped confession of Ward Abbott, the late former head of Treadstone. At the same time in Turin, journalist Simon Ross of The Guardian uncovers information about Bourne and Operation Blackbriar, the successor to Treadstone. The CIA intercepts Ross when he mentions Blackbriar during a phone call using the Echelon surveillance system. Meanwhile, Bourne, after informing Marie's brother Martin about her death in India, arranges to meet Ross at London Waterloo Station. Realizing the CIA is tracking him, Bourne tries to help Ross escape, but Ross panics and is shot by Blackbriar assassin Paz under the orders of Deputy Director Noah Vosen. Vosen's unit, with reluctant cooperation from Landy, traces Ross's notes to CIA Station Chief Neil Daniels in Madrid. Bourne investigates Daniels' office and reunites with Nikki Parsons, a former Treadstone contact from his past. She reveals Daniels has fled to Tangier and helps Bourne escape before CIA teams arrive. In Tangier, Vosen assigns Blackbriar operative Finney to eliminate Daniels, as well as Nikki and Bourne after noticing her access to restricted files, a move Landy opposes. Bourne pursues Deesh, but Daniels is killed before he can intervene. He manages to kill Deesh and rescue Nikki, sending her into hiding for safety. Searching Daniels' briefcase, Bourne uncovers the address of a covert CIA office in New York, where Vosen controls Blackbriar, and sets off for America. Bourne later contacts Landy by phone, which is intercepted by Vosen. Landy informs him of his true identity, David Webb, born April 15, 1971. Bourne lures Vosen away with a false meeting location, sneaks into his office, and secures Blackbriar files. Realizing this, Vosen dispatches Paz and alerts Dr. Albert Hirsch, the architect of Treadstone's conditioning program. After a car chase, Bourne spares Paz's life instead of killing him. Arriving at 415 East 71st Street, the hidden CIA facility, Bourne hands the Blackbriar documents to Landy before confronting Hirsch, who insists Bourne had volunteered for the program. As Bourne escapes to the roof, Paz confronts him, questioning why he was spared. Bourne echoes words once spoken by another assassin, "Look at us. Look at what they make you give." Paz hesitates, lowering his weapon, but Vosen arrives and fires at Bourne, who leaps into the East River. 3 days later, Nikki watches news reports revealing Blackbriar's exposure, the arrests of Hirsch and Vosen, and a criminal probe against Kramer. The broadcast notes that David Webb, also known as Jason Bourne, is missing, prompting her to smile. The final scene shows Bourne alive, swimming away into the shadows. The Bourne Ultimatum, 2007, a comprehensive analysis of casting choices. Introduction to Bourne Ultimatum, released in 2007, stands as a landmark achievement in modern action cinema, culminating the original Jason Bourne trilogy with visceral intensity and narrative sophistication. Directed by Paul Greengrass and based on Robert Ludlum's novel, the film represents the apex of the franchise's success, both critically and commercially. At the heart of this success lies an extraordinary ensemble of actors whose casting decisions would prove instrumental in delivering one of the most compelling spy thrillers of the 21st century. The casting process for the Bourne Ultimatum was far more complex than simply reassembling the previous film's talent. While the production benefited from continuity with returning cast members, it also required strategic additions to expand the narrative universe and deepen the conspiracy at the heart of Jason Bourne's quest for identity. The casting directors faced the challenge of maintaining the grounded, realistic tone established by the Bourne identity and the Bourne supremacy while introducing new characters who could hold their own against Matt Damon's now iconic portrayal of the amnesiac assassin. This article explores the intricate casting decisions that shaped the Bourne Ultimatum, examining how each actor contributed to the film's success, the chemistry between performers, the creative vision behind character development, and the lasting impact these choices had on the action genre as a whole. Matt Damon, the reluctant return of Jason Bourne. At the center of the Bourne Ultimatum's casting is Matt Damon, reprising his role as Jason Bourne for the third time. By 2007, Damon had become synonymous with the character, having transformed from the clean-cut protagonist of films like Good Will Hunting into a hardened, physically imposing action star. However, Damon's return to the franchise was not inevitable, and his decision to continue playing Bourne represented a significant commitment to the character's arc. When The Bourne Identity premiered in 2002, many industry observers questioned whether Damon could carry an action franchise. The actor had built his reputation on dramatic performances and was better known for his intellectual roles than physical prowess. However, Damon's interpretation of Bourne as a thinking man's action hero, someone who used intelligence and improvisation as much as combat skills, revolutionized the spy genre and proved his doubters wrong. By the time The Bourne Ultimatum entered production, Damon had undergone multiple physical transformations for the role. His dedication to the character's physicality was evident in his rigorous training regimen, which included martial arts, weapons training, and conditioning that would allow him to perform many of his own stunts. This commitment to authenticity became a hallmark of the franchise and set a new standard for action star preparation. Damon's approach to playing Bourne evolved significantly across the trilogy. In The Bourne Ultimatum, his portrayal reached its most refined form. The character had moved beyond the confusion and vulnerability of the first film and the rage-driven quest for vengeance in the second. Here, Bourne became a man with singular purpose, uncovering the truth of his origins and holding those responsible accountable. Damon played this determination with quiet intensity, allowing moments of humanity to break through the assassin's facade. The actor's collaboration with director Paul Greengrass was crucial to this evolution. Greengrass's documentary-style approach to action filmmaking required Damon to remain naturalistic even during the most spectacular sequences. Unlike traditional action heroes who deliver quips and maintain composure under fire, Bourne was physically affected by the violence around him, exhausted, injured, and desperate. Damon embraced this vulnerability, making Bourne's extraordinary abilities seem grounded in reality rather than superhuman fantasy. Damon's star power by 2007 also brought significant commercial weight to the project. His presence guaranteed a certain level of box office performance, but more importantly, his reputation for choosing quality projects lent The Bourne Ultimatum credibility with audiences skeptical of third installments. The actor's willingness to return signaled that the story had something meaningful to say rather than simply being a cash grab. Off-screen, Damon's collaborative spirit fostered a positive working environment that attracted other talented actors to the project. His reputation for professionalism and his lack of typical Hollywood ego made him an ideal anchor for an ensemble cast. Co-stars consistently praised his generosity in scenes, his willingness to rehearse extensively, and his openness to improvisation that often enhanced the script. The physical demands of the role in The Bourne Ultimatum were perhaps the most extreme of the trilogy. The film's action sequences from the Waterloo Station cat-and-mouse chase to the Tangier rooftop pursuit to the New York City finally required Damon to maintain peak physical condition throughout the extended shoot. His ability to convincingly portray hand-to-hand combat, process information rapidly while in motion, and convey strategic thinking in real time elevated every action sequence beyond mere spectacle. Damon's interpretation of Bourne's psychological state in the film added crucial emotional depth. As memories returned and the scope of the betrayal against him became clear, the actor communicated not just anger but profound disillusionment with the institutions that created him. His scenes with Albert Finney's Dr. Hirsch, where Bourne finally confronts his own moment of transformation, showcased Damon's dramatic range and provided the emotional catharsis the trilogy had been building toward. Julia Stiles, the evolution of Nikki Parsons. Julia Stiles' return as Nikki Parsons represented one of the most successful character evolutions in the Bourne franchise. Initially appearing in The Bourne Identity as a logistics coordinator with limited screen time, Nikki had become increasingly important in the Bourne supremacy. By The Bourne Ultimatum, she emerged as Bourne's most crucial ally and the film's emotional core beyond the protagonist himself. Stiles' casting in the expanded role reflected the filmmaker's recognition that her character resonated with audiences. Nikki's transformation from bureaucrat to active participant in Bourne's quest paralleled the audience's own journey into the conspiracy. Stiles brought a natural intelligence to the role that made Nikki's evolution believably. This wasn't a dramatic personality change but rather someone discovering courage she hadn't known she possessed. The chemistry between Stiles and Damon proved essential to the Bourne Ultimatum's emotional landscape. The film carefully balanced the suggestion of romantic feelings with the immediate demands of survival. Stiles played these moments with subtle restraint, allowing the audience to sense deeper feelings without overwhelming the narrative's momentum. Her performance suggested years of unspoken connection, making Nikki's willingness to sacrifice everything for Bourne completely credible. Stiles' preparation for the role involved significant physical training. As Nikki became more active in the film's action sequences, the extended chase through Tangier placed considerable demands on the actress, requiring her to navigate authentic locations at speed while maintaining character and hitting technical marks for Greengrass's kinetic camera work. Her commitment to these physical challenges matched Damon's, contributing to the sequence's visceral authenticity. The actress brought important vulnerability to her performance that balanced Bourne's stoicism. In scenes where Nikki expressed fear, uncertainty, or the weight of their situation, Stiles provided the emotional release that Bourne's character couldn't offer. This dynamic enriched the film's emotional texture and prevented the relentless action from becoming exhausting for viewers. Stiles' understated performance style complemented Greengrass's aesthetic perfectly. The director's preference for naturalistic acting over theatrical flourishes meant that Stiles' subtle emotional work registered powerfully on screen. Her ability to convey complex feelings with minimal dialogue, particularly in moments where Nikki and Bourne communicated through glances amid chaos, demonstrated sophisticated screen acting. The development of Nikki's character also reflected broader themes about complicity and redemption central to the Bourne trilogy. Stiles played Nikki's guilt over her past involvement with Treadstone with quiet anguish, suggesting that helping Bourne was as much about her own need for atonement as loyalty to him. This moral complexity elevated the character beyond simply being the love interest or the helper, making her a fully realized individual with her own arc. David Strathairn, the bureaucratic villain. The casting of David Strathairn as Noah Vosen represented a masterstroke in creating a compelling antagonist. Strathairn, a respected character actor known for thoughtful, nuanced performances, brought gravitas and intelligence to a role that could have been a one-dimensional villain. Instead, Vosen emerged as a complex figure whose actions, while reprehensible, stemmed from a believable worldview. Strathairn's distinguished career included an Academy Award nomination for Good Night and Good Luck just 2 years before the Bourne Ultimatum. His casting immediately elevated the material, signaling that the film would treat its antagonists with the same seriousness as its protagonist. The actor's natural authority made Vosen's position as the architect of Operation Blackbriar completely credible. The actor's performance emphasized Vosen's conviction that he was protecting America. Strathairn avoided playing the character as obviously evil or sadistic. Instead, he portrayed Vosen as a true believer in security through extreme measures, someone who had rationalized immoral actions as necessary sacrifices. This approach made him far more chilling than a scenery-chewing villain could have been. Strathairn's scenes in the operations center showcased his ability to convey controlled fury. As Bourne continually outmaneuvered his surveillance and tactical teams, Vosen's frustration built in small, precise increments. The actor communicated the character's growing desperation through increasingly terse dialogue and tightening bodied language rather than explosive outbursts. This restraint made moments when Vosen did raise his voice particularly impactful. The casting also benefited from Strathairn's ability to hold his own against more overtly dramatic performers. His scenes with Joan Allen's Pamela Landy crackled with tension as two different philosophies within the intelligence community clashed. Strathairn played Vosen's bureaucratic power plays with ruthless efficiency, making clear that his character's weapons were authorization codes and deniability as much as the assassins he deployed. Strathairn brought intellectual weight to the antagonist role that matched Damon's approach to Bourne. The conflict between them became a chess match between two highly intelligent operatives, one trying to disappear, the other trying to maintain control of an increasingly uncontrollable situation. The actor's performance suggested that Vosen was constantly calculating, assessing risks, and adjusting strategies in real time. The physicality of Strathairn's performance, though limited compared to the action sequences, was nonetheless important. His stillness in the operations center, watching multiple screens while others rushed around him, conveyed someone accustomed to wielding power from a distance. When circumstances finally forced Vosen into direct confrontation in the film's climax, Strathairn's sudden physical urgency heightened the stakes dramatically. Joan Allen. The moral conscience. Joan Allen's return as CIA Deputy Director Pamela Landy provided the Bourne Ultimatum with its moral center within the intelligence community. Allen, a three-time Academy Award nominee, brought impeccable credentials and a track record of playing women of integrity and strength. Her Landy served as a crucial counterpoint to Vosen's extremism and a reminder that not everyone within the system was corrupt. Allen's performance across the Bourne supremacy and the Bourne Ultimatum traced a character's journey from hunter to ally. In the earlier film, Landy pursued Bourne as a legitimate threat. By the Bourne Ultimatum, having glimpsed the truth about Dreadstone, she had become determined to expose the conspiracy from within. Allen played this evolution with careful consistency, showing how Landy's core values remained unchanged even as her understanding of the situation transformed. The actress brought a no-nonsense professionalism to the role that made Landy's authority unquestionable. In a male-dominated genre, Allen portrayed a woman who had risen to the upper echelons of the CIA through competence and integrity rather than compromise. Her Landy commanded rooms full of men without raising her voice, relying on the force of her arguments and her unimpeachable record. Allen's chemistry with Strathairn created one of the film's most compelling dynamics. Their scenes together bristled with ideological conflict masked by professional courtesy. Allen played Landy's growing horror at Vosen's methods with subtle shifts in posture and tone, registering the character's realization that she was watching the CIA betray its founding principles. The actress made Landy's decision to act against Vosen feel like a difficult choice with real consequences rather than easy heroism. The role required Allen to convey complex information clearly and authoritatively, often through exposition-heavy dialogue about classified programs and intelligence operations. Her delivery made this material comprehensible without condescension, maintaining urgency while ensuring audiences understood the stakes. This skill was crucial in a film with a labyrinthine conspiracy at its heart. Allen's scenes with Damon, though limited, carried significant weight. The tentative trust between Landy and Bourne, two people on opposite sides of the law who shared a commitment to truth, provided hope that redemption was possible. Allen played Landy's conflicted feelings about Bourne's sympathy for his situation balanced against awareness of his body count with admirable nuance. The actress also served as the audience's representative within the establishment, expressing the moral outrage viewers felt about Dreadstone and Blackbriar. Allen gave voice to these objections without becoming preachy, maintaining Landy's pragmatism even as she condemned the programs. This balance prevented the film's politics from overwhelming its thriller mechanics. Scott Glenn, the institutional authority. Scott Glenn's appearance as CIA Director Ezra Kramer, though limited in screen time, carried immense weight due to the actor's presence and the character's position at the apex of the intelligence hierarchy. Glenn, a veteran character actor with roles ranging from The Right Stuff to The Silence of the Lambs, brought gravitas that made every scene he appeared in significant. Kramer represented the ultimate institutional authority, the person theoretically in control of the entire conspiracy. Glenn's performance suggested a man who had spent decades in the intelligence community, someone who had seen and authorized countless morally questionable operations. The actor communicated this history through world-weary delivery and the weight he gave to carefully chosen words. The casting of Glenn specifically drew on his established screen persona as a tough, uncompromising figure. Audiences familiar with his work brought associations of hard men making hard choices, which served Kramer's character perfectly. However, Glenn also brought unexpected dimensions to the role, suggesting that Kramer was not simply a villain but a complex operator navigating impossible situations. Glenn's scenes with Allen showcased two professionals who had worked together for years. The actor played their interactions with familiarity tinged by wariness. Kramer knew Landy was smart and principled, qualities he admired but which made her unpredictable in the current crisis. Glenn conveyed Kramer's assessment of whether Landy could be controlled or would need to be managed through other means. The actor's limited screen time required him to establish the character quickly and memorably. Glenn accomplished this through precise physical choices of the way Kramer sat, his direct eye contact, the measured pace of his speech. These details communicated someone accustomed to authority who didn't need to assert it overtly. Glenn's performance left deliberately ambiguous how much Kramer knew about Treadstone and Blackbriar's specifics versus what he had plausible deniability about. The actor played this ambiguity masterfully, suggesting layers of bureaucratic protection that allowed leaders to benefit from immoral programs while claiming ignorance if exposed. This rang true to real intelligence community structures and made Kramer feel authentic. Paddy Considine. The catalyst. Paddy Considine's casting as Guardian journalist Simon Ross brought British gravitas and intensity to a crucial supporting role. Considine, known for powerful performances in films like Dead Man's Shoes and In America, brought the same commitment to what could have been a thankless exposition role, transforming Ross into a memorable character whose fate raised the stakes dramatically. Ross served as the catalyst that drew Bourne out of hiding, and Considine played the journalist as a man driven by both professional ambition and genuine outrage at government wrongdoing. The actor gave Ross enough dimension that audiences cared about his fate, making the Waterloo Station sequence not just a technical showcase but an emotionally invested pursuit. Considine's naturalistic acting style fit perfectly with Greengrass's aesthetic. His Ross felt like a real journalist, slightly disheveled, intellectually engaged, perhaps naive about the forces he was provoking. The actor avoided making Ross either a caricature of journalistic idealism or a cynical muckraker, finding a believable middle ground. The Waterloo Station sequence, one of the film's most celebrated set pieces, required Considine to convey mounting terror as he realized the danger he was in. The actor's performance made Ross's fear palpable, increasing tension as Bourne desperately tried to guide him to safety through a phone connection. Considine's physicality of the way Ross's movements became jerky and panicky added to the sequence's visceral impact. Though Ross's screen time was limited, Considine made strong choices that gave the character lasting impact. The journalist's death resonated throughout the remainder of the film, providing Bourne with additional motivation and serving as a stark reminder of the stakes for anyone who challenged the conspiracy. Considine's performance ensured audiences remembered Ross and felt the weight of his loss. Edgar Ramirez. The dark mirror Venezuelan actor Edgar Ramirez brought intensity and physicality to the role of Paz, one of the Blackbriar assets deployed to eliminate Bourne. Ramirez, who would later gain wider recognition for his portrayal of Carlos the Jackal in the miniseries Carlos, used this role to showcase his ability to play dangerous, coiled intensity. Paz served as a dark mirror to Bourne, another product of the same system, but one who hadn't broken free of his programming. Ramirez played this parallel with focused menace, suggesting someone whose humanity had been completely sublimated to his function as a weapon. The actor gave Paz few wasted movements or words, communicating lethal efficiency. The physical demands of the role were considerable, particularly during the Tangier rooftop chase and the film's climactic apartment confrontation. Ramirez brought impressive athleticism to these sequences, matching Damon's physicality and making their encounters convincingly brutal. The actor's commitment to the role's physical requirements helped sell the danger Paz represented. Ramirez's performance was largely physical rather than verbal, but he made strong choices in the few dialogue scenes Paz had. The actor portrayed Paz as someone uncomfortable with human interaction, more at ease with violence than conversation. This awkwardness made him more disturbing. Here was someone so thoroughly conditioned that normal social interaction seemed alien. The final confrontation between Paz and Bourne carried additional weight because Ramirez had made the character more than a generic henchman. The actor's intensity throughout the film made Paz feel like a legitimate threat, and his ultimate fate resonated as tragedy as much as action climax. Here was another victim of the same system that created Bourne. Albert Finney, the architect of trauma. The casting of legendary British actor Albert Finney as Dr. Albert Hirsch represented bringing gravitas and prestige to the role of the man who psychologically conditioned Bourne into a killer. Finney, with a career spanning from the British New Wave through contemporary cinema and 5 Academy Award nominations, brought weight to what could have been a one-scene role. Dr. Hirsch represented the ultimate betrayal of the figure who had manipulated Bourne's psychology to transform him into a weapon. Finney played the character not as a sadistic monster but as someone who genuinely believed in his work's importance. The actor gave Hirsch an academic's detachment, as though conditioning assassins was simply applied psychology rather than human destruction. Finney's appearance in the film's climactic flashback sequence provided the emotional revelation the entire trilogy had been building toward. The actor played Hirsch's manipulation of the young David Webb with chilling calm, walking him through his own psychological dismantling as though it were a therapy session. Finney's controlled performance made the horror of what was happening to Webb, Bourne, even more disturbing. The casting of an actor of Finney's stature for this crucial role signaled the filmmaker's commitment to earning the trilogy's emotional climax. A lesser performer might have made Hirsch forgettable or cartoonish. Finney brought the role depth that honored the character's importance to Bourne's journey while creating a genuinely unsettling antagonist. Finney's scenes opposite Damon showcased 2 completely different approaches to performance. Finney's theatrical training and classical technique contrasting with Damon's naturalistic method. Yet the actors found harmony in these differences, creating a dynamic where Hirsch's controlled artificiality contrasted with Bourne's desperate search for authentic identity. The actor's delivery of Hirsch's psychological manipulation demonstrated how sophisticated abuse could be disguised as assistance. Finney played the Doctor as sincerely believing he was helping his subjects transcend moral weakness to become more effective. This sincere conviction made Hirsch more disturbing than if he had been obviously evil. Tom Gallop. The professional operative Tom Gallop's return as Tom Cronin, Pamela Landy's right-hand man, provided continuity with the Bourne supremacy while allowing the character to develop further. Gallop portrayed Cronin as the consummate professional, loyal, competent, and morally grounded. His performance provided reliable support to Allen's Landy and represented the everyday intelligence professional trying to do their job ethically. Gallop's Cronin served as an important reminder that most people within the CIA were decent professionals rather than conspirators. The actor played Cronin's growing disillusionment with Vosen's tactics with subtle shifts in body language and tone. His visible discomfort during Vosen's more extreme measures gave voice to audience reactions. The chemistry between Gallop and Allen suggested years of working relationship and mutual respect. Cronin's loyalty to Landy felt earned rather than convenient, with Gallop suggesting through his performance that this loyalty was based on shared values rather than hierarchy. This made Cronin's support crucial to Landy's eventual actions against Vosen. Gallop brought welcome levity to the film during its lighter moments, playing Cronin's dry humor as the wit of someone coping with high-stress situations. These moments prevented the film from becoming relentlessly grim while maintaining its serious tone. The actor's understated comedy relief never undercut the tension. Supporting cast and ensemble excellence. The Bourne Ultimatum success relied heavily on its deep bench of supporting performers who brought authenticity to even minor roles. The casting directors populated the film with character actors who made every intelligence analyst, surveillance operative, and tactical team member feel like a real professional rather than a generic extra. This attention to casting detail reinforced Greengrass's commitment to verisimilitude. When operations center personnel reacted to developments, these reactions felt authentic because the performers brought genuine engagement to their roles. The film avoided the common action movie trap of surrounding stars with anonymous bodies, instead creating a lived-in world populated by believable individuals. The international casting for sequences in Moscow, Paris, London, Madrid, Tangier, and New York added crucial authenticity. Local actors brought linguistic and cultural accuracy that grounded the film's globetrotting narrative. This wasn't simply window dressing of the commitment to authentic casting in every location contributed to the franchise's reputation for realism. The tactical teams pursuing Bourne throughout the film were cast with performers who brought physicality and intensity to their roles. These weren't faceless antagonists but individuals whose competence made Bourne's ability to defeat them impressive. The casting elevated chase sequences by ensuring that the pursuers felt like legitimate threats. Even characters with single scenes or no dialogue received careful casting attention. The witness who called Bourne in to identify a body, the police officers who responded to various incidents, the civilians caught in cross-fury, all were played by performers who made their brief moments feel authentic. This comprehensive approach to casting created a textured world that supported the film's main narrative. The casting director's vision. The casting process for the Bourne Ultimatum required balancing multiple considerations, maintaining continuity with previous films, introducing new characters who could hold their own against established ones, ensuring physical credibility for action sequences, and finding performers who would embrace Greengrass's naturalistic directing style. The casting directors had to consider not just individual performances but ensemble chemistry. The operations center scenes, for instance, required multiple actors to create believable team dynamics while hitting technical marks about surveillance technology and tactical procedures. This demanded performers who could make exposition feel like natural professional communication. Physical capability was crucial for many roles. The film's commitment to practical action meant actors needed genuine athleticism rather than relying entirely on stunt doubles. This narrowed casting options but resulted in action sequences with undeniable authenticity. The casting team worked closely with stunt coordinators to ensure selected actors could meet the physical demands. The decision to cast internationally rather than defaulting to American or British actors for all roles demonstrated commitment to authenticity. This approach created logistical challenges but paid dividends in making the film's world feel genuinely global. The casting directors worked with local casting agencies in each shooting location to find appropriate talent. Scheduling was another significant challenge. With a cast of this caliber, coordinating availability while maintaining the production schedule required careful planning. The casting directors had to balance ideal choices against practical realities, sometimes pursuing alternative options when scheduling conflicts arose with preferred actors. Diversity and representation. The Bourne Ultimatum's casting reflected both the progress made and limitations remaining in Hollywood representation. Circa 2007, the film featured women in positions of power, with Joan Allen's Pamela Landy representing competent female authority in a traditionally male-dominated genre. Julia Stiles' Nikki evolved from support staff to active participant, showing agency and capability. However, the film's diversity was imperfect by contemporary standards. While international casting added variety, roles of color were often limited to foreign locations, with the American intelligence community portrayed as predominantly white. This reflected reality in some ways but also missed opportunities for more inclusive representation in positions of power. Edgar Ramírez's casting as Paz represented Latin American talent in a significant role, though the character was an antagonist. The film's international locations allowed for diverse casting in supporting roles, but central power structures remain relatively homogeneous. This represents the industry norms of the period rather than the Bourne Ultimatum specifically, but is worth noting when examining the film's casting choices. The film did avoid some common action movie pitfalls, such as casting women purely for romantic or decorative purposes. Both Allen and Stiles played characters defined by competence and agency rather than relationships to male characters. This represented progress, even if fuller diversity remained an aspiration rather than reality. The impact of star power. Matt Damon's star power by 2007 brought significant commercial weight to the project, but the casting of respected character actors like David Strathairn, Joan Allen, Albert Finney, and Scott Glenn elevated the material beyond typical blockbuster fare. This combination of commercial appeal and artistic credibility became a hallmark of the Bourne franchise. The presence of Oscar-nominated and winning actors signaled quality to audiences and critics. When performers of this caliber committed to the project, It suggested the material was worthy of serious attention. This perception contributed to the film's critical acclaim and helped position it as more than mere entertainment. However, the casting choices also involved risk. These were not actors typically associated with action films, and their participation meant the film couldn't rely on genre conventions. The material had to be strong enough to justify their involvement, and the action had to serve character and story rather than existing for its own sake. The ensemble approach distributed attention across multiple compelling performances rather than making the film entirely dependent on Damon's appeal. This enriched the narrative and provided entry points for different audience segments. Fans of David Strathairn's work had reason to attend even if they weren't previously interested in action films. Physical training and preparation. The physical demands placed on the cast of the Bourne Ultimatum were extraordinary, requiring months of preparation before filming began. Matt Damon's training regimen for the role had evolved across the trilogy, becoming increasingly sophisticated as the action sequences grew more ambitious. Damon worked with fight coordinators to master multiple martial arts styles, creating Bourne's eclectic fighting approach that drew from Krav Maga, Filipino martial arts, and boxing. The actor trained extensively in weapons handling, including firearms and improvised weapons, ensuring he could perform these actions with automatic fluidity. His conditioning program emphasized functional fitness that would allow him to perform demanding physical sequences across long shooting days. Julia Stiles underwent significant physical preparation for her expanded action role. The danger chase sequence required her to navigate rooftops, crowded streets, and tight quarters at speed while maintaining character and hitting marks. Stiles trained in basic combat and defensive tactics to make Nikki's reactions to violence believable for someone unused to fieldwork. Edgar Ramirez's preparation for playing Paz was perhaps the most intensive after Damon's. The actor needed to match Bourne's physical capability while bringing a different fighting style. Ramirez trained in Parker for the rooftop sequences and worked extensively with fight coordinators to develop Paz's brutal efficiency. Even actors with primarily dramatic roles underwent preparation to ensure physical credibility. The film's commitment to realism extended to ensuring that everyone moved and carried themselves appropriately for their characters. Intelligence professionals carried themselves differently than field operatives, and these distinctions needed to be embodied by the performers. Chemistry and ensemble dynamics. The chemistry between cast members significantly impacted the Bourne Ultimatum's success. The trust and rapport between Matt Damon and Julia Stiles, developed across multiple films, allowed them to communicate complex emotions with minimal dialogue. Their comfort with each other translated to screen authenticity that couldn't be manufactured. The tension between David Strathairn and Joan Allen required different chemistry, a professional courtesy masking ideological conflict. Both actors brought generous collaboration to these scenes, each giving the other opportunities to shine. Their willingness to listen and react authentically created dynamic interactions rather than actors simply delivering lines. The ensemble scenes in the operations center required precise choreography not just physically but performatively. Multiple actors working in close quarters, delivering technical dialogue while maintaining character and emotional truth, demanded significant rehearsal and trust. The cast's willingness to workshop these scenes contributed to their effectiveness. Paul Greengrass's directing style, which often involved multiple cameras and extended takes, required actors to remain in character throughout long sequences regardless of which camera was capturing them. This demanded ensemble thinking rather than individual scene stealing. The cast embraced this approach, resulting in consistently believable group dynamics. Rehearsal and improvisation. The balance between precise choreography and spontaneous authenticity was crucial to the Bourne Ultimatum's success. Paul Greengrass encouraged significant rehearsal for action sequences to ensure safety and precision, but also welcomed improvisation in dramatic scenes to discover authentic moments. Matt Damon's willingness to experiment with different approaches to scenes set a collaborative tone. The actor would often try multiple variations of deliveries or physical choices, giving Greengrass options in editing. This generosity with his time and energy encouraged other cast members to take similar risks. Julia Stiles contributed improvisational moments that enhanced Nikki's character, particularly in scenes expressing concern for Bourne's well-being. Some of her most affecting moments came from instinctive reactions rather than scripted choices. Greengrass's openness to these contributions created space for actors to deepen their performances. The script by Tony Gilroy, Scott Z. Burns, and George Nolfi provided a strong foundation, but the cast's contributions during rehearsal and filming refined dialogue and character beats. David Strathairn suggested adjustments to Vosen's dialogue that made the character more bureaucratically authentic. Joan Allen brought insights about how women in intelligence leadership communicate authority differently than their male counterparts. Action sequences underwent extensive pre-visualization and rehearsal, but Greengrass built in opportunities for spontaneous reactions from actors. The controlled chaos of his shooting style meant that genuine surprise and adrenaline from performers often made it into the final film, adding to the visceral authenticity. The legacy of casting choices. The casting decisions for the Bourne Ultimatum had lasting impact on the action genre and the careers of several involved actors. The film demonstrated that sophisticated adult thrillers could achieve both critical acclaim and commercial success with proper casting of serious actors committed to grounded performances. Matt Damon's work in the Bourne franchise permanently altered his career trajectory and influenced how action stars prepare for roles. His commitment to physicality and emotional authenticity set new standards that subsequent action performers would be measured against. The role proved that leading men could be thinking persons, action heroes rather than cartoonish supermen. Julia Stiles' evolution as Nikki Parsons showcased how supporting characters could develop across a franchise, eventually becoming central to the narrative. This influenced how studios thought about building franchise ensembles and developing characters across multiple installments. The presence of actors like David Strathairn, Joan Allen, and Albert Finney in action films became less unusual following the Bourne Ultimatum success. The film proved that prestigious actors in genre pictures elevated the material and attracted audiences who might otherwise dismiss action films. This contributed to the increasingly blurred lines between prestige and genre filmmaking. The film's international casting approach, treating foreign locations as authentic settings requiring local talent, influenced subsequent action films. The Jason Bourne franchise helped move the genre away from American characters operating in vaguely foreign environments toward more sophisticated global narratives with appropriate casting, critical reception and performance recognition. While action films rarely receive major awards consideration, the Bourne Ultimatum's cast earned recognition for their work. The film won Academy Awards for editing, sound mixing, and sound editing, categories that directly interfaced with the actors' performances. The cast's commitment to practical action and authentic reactions contributed directly to these technical achievements. Critics consistently praised the ensemble performances, with particular attention to Matt Damon's refinement of the character and David Strathairn's layered antagonist. Reviews noted how the film elevated action cinema through serious performances grounded in character rather than spectacle for its own sake. The absence of traditional awards recognition for individual performances said more about institutional bias against genre films than the quality of the work. Many critics argued that Damon The Bourne Ultimatum, 2007, a comprehensive analysis of production, release, and reception introduction. The Bourne Ultimatum stands as a landmark achievement in modern action cinema, representing the culmination of one of the most critically acclaimed spy thriller trilogies of the 21st century. Released in 2007, this third installment in the Bourne franchise not only met the high expectations set by its predecessors but exceeded them, delivering a visceral, intelligent, and emotionally resonant conclusion to Jason Bourne's quest for identity. Directed by Paul Greengrass and starring Matt Damon in his defining role as the amnesiac CIA assassin, The Bourne Ultimatum pushed the boundaries of action filmmaking while maintaining the series' commitment to grounded, realistic storytelling. This film represents a rare achievement in franchise filmmaking, a third entry that surpasses its predecessors both critically and commercially. Where many trilogies falter in their final chapter, The Bourne Ultimatum elevated the entire series, setting new standards for action choreography, editing, and narrative complexity. The film's success was not accidental but the result of meticulous planning, innovative production techniques, and a creative team committed to delivering an authentic and thrilling cinematic experience. The journey from concept to screen involved numerous challenges, creative decisions, and technical innovations that would influence action cinema for years to come. From its development and pre-production phase through filming across multiple continents, post-production refinement, and ultimately its theatrical and home media release, every aspect of the Bourne Ultimatum's creation contributed to its status as a modern classic. This comprehensive examination explores the intricate process behind bringing this cinematic achievement to life and analyzes its remarkable reception among critics and audiences worldwide. Production development and pre-production. The development of the Bourne Ultimatum began even before the Bourne Supremacy completed its theatrical run in 2004. The success of the second film, which had improved upon the first both critically and commercially, created significant momentum within Universal Pictures to continue the franchise. However, the filmmakers were determined not to rush into production simply to capitalize on the series' popularity. Instead, they took a measured approach to ensure that the third installment would be worthy of the Bourne name and provide a satisfying conclusion to Jason Bourne's journey. Paul Greengrass, who had directed the Bourne Supremacy and revolutionized the franchise's visual style with his documentary-influenced approach, was the studio's first choice to return. His handheld camera work, rapid editing style, and commitment to practical stunts had defined the modern aesthetic of the series. Greengrass was initially hesitant about returning for a third film, concerned about repeating himself or diluting the impact of what he had achieved with Supremacy. However, the opportunity to complete Bourne's story and explore the conspiracy that had created him proved too compelling to resist. Matt Damon's involvement was equally crucial to the project's green light. By 2007, Damon had fully embodied the character of Jason Bourne, bringing a combination of physical intensity, emotional vulnerability, and intellectual depth that made the character far more than a typical action hero. Damon's commitment to performing his own stunts and his collaborative relationship with Greengrass had been essential to the success of the previous film. For the third installment, Damon was willing to return on the condition that the script would provide genuine closure to Bourne's arc rather than simply setting up future sequels. The screenplay development process was complex and involved multiple writers. Tony Gilroy, who had written the screenplays for the first two films and had been instrumental in establishing the franchise's intelligent, character-driven approach to the spy thriller genre, initially worked on the script. However, creative differences emerged during development, and while Gilroy retained a story credit, the screenplay was ultimately credited to Tony Gilroy, Scott Z. Burns, and George Nolfi. This collaborative writing process reflected the filmmakers' determination to craft a narrative that would satisfy both longtime fans and newcomers to the series. The script for the Bourne Ultimatum was structured to simultaneously continue directly from the Bourne Supremacy while also overlapping with events from that film, creating a complex timeline that would require careful attention in both writing and editing. This narrative structure was ambitious and risky, as it required audiences to remember specific details from the previous film while also experiencing those same events from new perspectives. The decision to employ this overlapping narrative structure demonstrated the filmmakers' confidence in their audience's intelligence and attention. Pre-production also involved extensive location scouting across multiple continents. Unlike many modern action films that rely heavily on studio sets and green screen technology, Greengrass insisted on filming in practical locations whenever possible to maintain the series' commitment to authenticity and realism. Location scouts traveled to London, Madrid, Tangier, New York, Paris, and Berlin, seeking out specific architectural and urban environments that would serve the story while providing dynamic visual backdrops for the film's elaborate action sequences. The production design team, led by production designer Peter Wenham, faced the challenge of creating visually distinct environments that would photograph well with Greengrass's kinetic camera style while maintaining the gritty, realistic aesthetic established in previous films. This meant avoiding overly stylized or artificial-looking sets in favor of real locations that could be enhanced with minimal decoration. The goal was to create environments that felt authentic and lived in, places where audiences could believe real intelligence operations might actually occur. Casting for the film involved both returning performers and new additions to the franchise. Julia Stiles returned as Nikki Parsons, the CIA operative whose relationship with Bourne had evolved throughout the series. The decision to expand her role significantly in the third film added emotional depth and provided Bourne with an ally within the agency. David Strathairn was cast as Noah Vosen, the primary antagonist and the CIA official overseeing the Blackbriar program. Strathairn brought gravitas and intelligence to the role, creating a villain who was threatening not through physical menace but through institutional power and strategic thinking. Joan Allen also returned as Pamela Landy, the CIA deputy director who had pursued Bourne in the previous film but had come to question the agency's methods. Finney was cast in a crucial supporting role as Dr. Albert Hirsch, the psychologist responsible for Bourne's conditioning in the Treadstone program. Scott Glenn appeared as CIA Director Ezra Kramer, providing additional layers to the agency's hierarchy and the conspiracy surrounding Bourne's creation. The casting of Paddy Considine as Simon Ross, a Guardian journalist investigating Treadstone and Blackbriar, was particularly important as his character would be at the center of one of the film's most elaborate and suspenseful sequences. Edgar Ramírez was cast as Puz, an assassin working for the Blackbriar program, providing a physical threat to Bourne that would culminate in an intense confrontation. Stunt coordination and choreography began months before principal photography. The action sequences were meticulously planned and rehearsed, with stunt coordinator Dan Bradley working closely with Greengrass to ensure that every action beat served the story while pushing the boundaries of what could be achieved practically. Unlike increasingly CGI-dependent action films of the era, the Bourne Ultimatum would rely primarily on practical stunts, real locations, and innovative camera work to create its thrilling sequences. The film's budget was set at approximately $110 million, a significant increase from the Bourne Supremacy's $75 million budget but still relatively modest compared to other major action franchises of the period. This budget would need to cover the extensive international shooting schedule, the coordination of multiple large-scale action sequences, and the post-production work necessary to achieve Greengrass's signature visual style. The producers at the Kennedy, Marshall Company, working in association with Ludlam Entertainment, carefully managed the budget to ensure that resources were allocated effectively across the production. Technical preparation involved selecting the appropriate camera equipment and establishing the visual approach for the film. Cinematographer Oliver Wood, who had shot The Bourne Supremacy, returned for the third film, bringing his expertise in handheld camera work and documentary-style cinematography. The decision was made to shoot on 35mm film rather than digital video, as film stock provided the texture and grain that contributed to the franchise's distinctive visual aesthetic. Multiple camera setups would be employed during action sequences to capture coverage from various angles, providing editor Christopher Rouse with extensive material to craft the rapid-fire editing style that had become synonymous with the series. Pre-visualization played a crucial role in planning the film's most complex sequences, while Greengrass preferred to maintain spontaneity and improvisation during actual filming. The technical complexity and safety requirements of certain action scenes necessitated detailed planning. The Waterloo Station sequence, in particular, required extensive pre-visualization to coordinate the movement of extras, the positioning of cameras, and the specific action beats that would occur within the crowded public space. Insurance and safety considerations were paramount given the film's commitment to practical stunts and real locations. Extensive safety protocols were established for every major stunt, and multiple rehearsals were conducted before any potentially dangerous action was attempted. Matt Damon underwent rigorous physical training to prepare for the film's demands, working with trainers to build the strength, stamina, and fighting skills necessary for the role. This training regimen began weeks before filming commenced and continued throughout production to maintain Damon's physical conditioning. The pre-production period also involved coordination with various governmental and municipal authorities in the cities where filming would occur. Securing permissions to film in major locations like Waterloo Station in London, which serves hundreds of thousands of passengers daily, required extensive negotiations and careful planning to minimize disruption while ensuring the safety of both cast, crew, and the public. Similar coordination was necessary for filming in Tangier, Madrid, New York, and other locations around the world. Filming principal photography for the Bourne Ultimatum commenced in the fall of 2006 and extended into early 2007, encompassing a grueling international shooting schedule that would take the cast and crew across 3 continents and through 6 countries. The production's ambition to capture authentic locations rather than recreate them in studios or with digital effects meant that the filmmakers would face the logistical challenges and unpredictable variables that come with locations shooting on a massive scale. The filming process began in Europe, where much of the movie's action takes place. London served as one of the primary locations, with several crucial sequences set in the British capital. The most elaborate and technically demanding of these was the Waterloo Station sequence, which would become one of the film's most celebrated set pieces. Filming at Waterloo Station required extraordinary coordination with station authorities, as the location serves as one of London's busiest transportation hubs, handling over 100 million passengers annually. To capture the Waterloo Station sequence, the production team had to work within the constraints of a functioning railway station while attempting to create the controlled chaos necessary for the scene. The sequence, which involves Bourne guiding journalist Simon Ross through a surveillance operation while multiple CIA operatives attempt to intercept him, required the coordination of hundreds of background performers, multiple camera units, and precise choreography to maintain both visual continuity and narrative clarity within the crowded environment. Greengrass employed his signature handheld camera technique throughout the Waterloo sequence, with multiple camera operators moving through the crowds to capture different perspectives of the action. This approach created an immersive, almost documentary-like quality that placed viewers directly into the tension of the scene. The challenge for the camera operators was maintaining focus and framing while moving rapidly through unpredictable crowds and following the actors through the station's various levels and platforms. The Charing Cross Underground station also served as a location for portions of this extended sequence, with filming taking place in the actual tunnels and platforms of London's underground system. Working in these confined spaces with limited lighting and the constant threat of disruption from actual train schedules presented significant challenges for the production team. Safety protocols were even more stringent in the underground environment, and the production had to work during limited windows when sections of the station could be closed to regular passenger traffic. From London, the production moved to Tangier, Morocco, where another major action sequence would be filmed. The Tangier segment features a rooftop chase and a brutal close-quarters fight between Bourne and the assassin Hirsch. The narrow streets, crowded markets, and distinctive architecture of Tangier's Medina provided a visually dynamic backdrop that contrasted sharply with the sleek, modern environments of the CIA operations centers. Filming in Tangier presented unique challenges related to the location's complex geography and the need to coordinate action across multiple rooftops in the Old City. The rooftop chase required extensive safety measures, including the use of harnesses and safety cables that would later be digitally removed in post-production. Stunt performers rehearsed the sequence repeatedly to ensure that every jump, climb, and fall could be executed safely while maintaining the visceral intensity that Greengrass demanded. The fight sequence between Bourne and Hirsch, which takes place in a cramped bathroom, was choreographed by stunt coordinator Dan Bradley to be one of the most brutal and realistic hand-to-hand combat scenes ever filmed. The choreography emphasized improvised weaponry, environmental combat, and the desperate, survival-driven nature of a fight between 2 highly trained operatives. Matt Damon and stunt performer Joey Anza, who doubled for Edgar Ramirez in some shots, spent days rehearsing the intricate choreography in this confined space. The decision to film this fight in close quarters with handheld cameras meant that the camera operators had to be incredibly nimble, moving within the small bathroom space while the actors performed the violent choreography around them. The result was an intensely claustrophobic sequence that put viewers directly into the violence, refusing to romanticize or glamorize the combat. This approach to action cinematography would become highly influential, informing the fight sequences in numerous subsequent action films. Madrid, Spain served as another significant filming location, though the Spanish capital stood in for multiple cities in the finished film through careful framing and production design. The production utilized various locations throughout Madrid to create the anonymous, international feeling of Bourne's world, where the CIA's reach extends to every corner of the globe. The ability to dress locations to represent different cities while maintaining visual consistency was a testament to the production design team's skill and attention to detail. Berlin provided locations for sequences early in the film, including the Lichtenberg train station, which was used for a scene showing Bourne traveling through Europe. The German capital's mixture of modern architecture and Cold War-era infrastructure provided visual variety and reinforced the film's themes of surveillance, secrecy, and the long shadow of intelligence operations. Filming in Berlin was relatively brief compared to other locations but essential for establishing the international scope of Bourne's pursuit and the CIA's surveillance network. New York City locations were crucial for sequences set at the CIA's New York station and for the film's climactic moments. The production filmed at various locations throughout Manhattan, utilizing both exterior locations and stage work for interior scenes. The New York sequences required extensive coordination with city authorities and the cooperation of various property owners to secure the necessary filming permissions. The city's distinctive skyline and urban texture provided immediately recognizable visuals that grounded the story in a specific geographic reality. The film's climactic sequence, set at the CIA Black Site facility where Bourne finally confronts Dr. Hirsch and recovers his complete memories, was filmed on constructed sets that could accommodate the specific blocking and camera work required for these crucial emotional scenes. These sets were built to feel authentic and institutional, with the sterile, impersonal quality of a government facility. The design avoided the over-stylized look of typical movie villain layers in favor of a more realistic portrayal of a CIA training and interrogation facility. Throughout the filming process, Greengrass maintained his preference for multiple takes and extensive coverage, often running scenes numerous times with different camera positions, angles, and performance variations. This approach generated an enormous amount of footage that would later be assembled in the editing room. While this method was time-consuming and occasionally frustrating for cast and crew, it provided the editorial team with the raw material necessary to construct the film's distinctive rhythm and pace. The production's commitment to practical effects and real stunts meant that many days of filming were dedicated to single action beats or sequences. The meticulousness with which each stunt was prepared, rehearsed, and executed ensured both the safety of the performers and the authenticity of the final result. When digital effects were necessary, such as removing safety equipment or enhancing certain impacts, they were used subtly and in service of realism rather than spectacle. Weather conditions and unpredictable location variables occasionally disrupted the filming schedule, requiring the production to adapt and improvise. Greengrass's documentary background served him well in these situations, as he was accustomed to working with uncontrollable elements and incorporating them into the visual storytelling. Some of the film's most effective moments emerged from these spontaneous circumstances, demonstrating the value of remaining flexible and responsive during production. The international cast and crew faced the challenges of constant travel, different time zones, and varying working conditions across multiple countries. Maintaining continuity, both in terms of performance and technical consistency, required careful attention from the script supervisor and cinematographer. The production moved with military efficiency, often setting up and filming at a location in a matter of days before moving to the next country. Matt Damon's performance throughout this demanding production schedule demonstrated his commitment to the role and the physical demands of the character. Beyond the obvious physical requirements of the action sequences, Damon maintained the emotional through-line of Bourne's journey, playing scenes of quiet intensity and psychological turmoil with the same commitment he brought to the action. The actor's willingness to perform his own stunts whenever safely possible added to the authenticity of the action sequences. The supporting cast members, working around Damon's extensive schedule, filmed their scenes across various locations with the same commitment to authenticity. David Strathairn, a CIA aficionado of Vosen, spent much of his screen time in the control center sets, requiring a different kind of intensity, a bureaucratic ruthlessness that contrasted with Bourne's physical threat. Joan Allen's scenes as Pamela Landy required her to navigate the moral complexity of a character caught between institutional loyalty and growing ethical concerns about her agency's methods. One of the production's notable achievements was maintaining secrecy about the film's plot details and specific action sequences despite filming in numerous public locations with hundreds of onlookers. The production team employed various strategies to minimize spoilers, including filming multiple versions of certain scenes, using code names for locations and characters, and carefully controlling access to the set. This operational security reflected both the practical demands of modern franchise filmmaking and a thematic resonance with the film's subject matter of surveillance and secrecy. Second unit work, directed by Dan Bradley, captured additional action coverage, establishing shots, and supplementary footage that would be integrated with the principal photography. Second unit filming often occurred simultaneously with the main unit in different locations, maximizing the production's efficiency and allowing the team to capture the extensive coverage necessary for Greengrass's editing style. This parallel production approach required careful coordination to ensure visual consistency and narrative coherence across units. As principal photography wrapped in early 2007, the production had generated hundreds of hours of footage shot across 6 countries on 3 continents. The enormous volume of material would now move into post-production, where it would be refined, assembled, and transformed into the finished film. The filming phase had been ambitious, demanding, and occasionally grueling, but it had captured the raw material for what would become one of the most critically acclaimed action films of the decade. Post-production. The post-production phase of the Bourne Ultimatum was every bit as crucial and intensive as the filming process itself. With hundreds of hours of footage captured across multiple countries and the need to create the franchise's signature kinetic editing style, the post-production period extended for several months and involved numerous technical and creative personnel working to refine every aspect of the film. Film editor Christopher Rouse, who had cut the Bourne supremacy and would win an Academy Award for his work on Ultimatum, faced the monumental task of assembling a coherent and compelling narrative from the vast amount of coverage that Greengrass's multi-camera approach had generated. Rouse's editing style, characterized by rapid cuts, overlapping action, and a propulsive rhythm that created almost unbearable tension, had become one of the defining elements of the Bourne franchise's identity. The editing process began even before principal photography had concluded, with Rouse assembling rough cuts of completed sequences while filming continued. This parallel workflow allowed Greengrass to review the edited material and make adjustments to subsequent filming if necessary. The collaborative relationships between director and editor was essential to achieving the film's final form, with Rouse understanding intuitively how to construct action sequences that maintained spatial clarity despite their rapid cutting rhythm. One of the primary challenges in editing the Bourne Ultimatum was maintaining geographic and temporal continuity across sequences that overlapped with the Bourne supremacy's ending. The decision to have portions of the third film occur simultaneously with the conclusion of the second film created complex editorial challenges. Rouse had to carefully track multiple narrative threads occurring in different locations while ensuring that audiences could follow Bourne's journey and understand the timeline of events. The Waterloo Station sequence, which runs approximately 10 minutes in the finished film, required extraordinary editorial precision. The sequence involved multiple characters moving through a crowded public space while being tracked by surveillance and CIA operatives, with Bourne attempting to guide journalist Simon Ross to safety while remaining hidden himself. Rouse had to construct this sequence from coverage shot over multiple days, with hundreds of background performers and various camera angles, while maintaining both the geographic logic of the station and the escalating tension of the cat-and-mouse game. The editing rhythm in this sequence demonstrates Rouse's mastery of building suspense through cross-cutting and timing. The sequence alternates between wide surveillance camera views showing the operational overview, handheld shots following individual characters through the crowd, and close-ups capturing the psychological tension of the moment. The cutting accelerates as the sequence builds toward its tragic conclusion, with the rhythm of the edits itself creating anxiety and anticipation. For the action sequences, particularly the Tangier rooftop chase and the bathroom fight. Rouse faced the challenge of making the violence feel immediate and visceral while maintaining enough clarity that audiences could follow the action. The bathroom fight between Bourne and Hirsch involved hundreds of individual shots, with some lasting less than a second, creating a staccato rhythm that conveyed the brutal desperation of the combat. Yet despite the rapidity of the cutting, viewers can follow the geography of the fight and understand the tactics and improvisations each fighter employs. Sound design played an equally crucial role in post-production, with supervising sound editors Karen Baker-Landers and Per Hulberg crafting an immersive sonic environment that enhanced every aspect of the film. The sound design in the Bourne Ultimatum is notable for its aggressive, hyper-realistic approach to gunshots, impacts, and environmental sounds. Every punch in the fight scenes carries devastating weight, every gunshot is startlingly loud and harsh, and the ambient sounds of each location are captured with documentary-level fidelity. The sound team worked closely with the editors to ensure that the sonic elements reinforced the visual rhythm. In the Waterloo Station sequence, the layered sounds of crowd chatter, train announcements, footsteps, and surveillance equipment create a dense auditory texture that mirrors the visual complexity. The sound design subtly guides audience attention, with specific sounds emerging from the mix to highlight important story elements or create anticipatory tension. Visual effects work on the Bourne Ultimatum was deliberately subtle, focused on enhancement rather than spectacle. The visual effects team, working under the supervision of Peter Chiang, employed digital techniques primarily to remove safety equipment, extend locations, add blood and impact effects, and create the film's numerous computer screen interfaces. The philosophy was that visual effects should be invisible, serving the story without calling attention to themselves. Digital effects were particularly important in creating the numerous surveillance and computer interface shots that appear throughout the film. These screens needed to look authentic and functional, reflecting actual CIA software interfaces rather than the fantastical holographic displays common in many spy films. The visual effects team researched actual surveillance technology and intelligence software to create believable interfaces that enhance the film's documentary realism. Color grading and digital intermediate work refined the film's visual palette, creating the desaturated, slightly cool color scheme that had become characteristic of the franchise. Colorist Peter Oil worked to ensure visual consistency across footage shot in different countries under varying lighting conditions, while also creating distinct color moods for different locations. The CIA operations centers have a cold, blue-tinted quality, while the international locations retain warmer, more naturalistic colors that contrast with the institutional sterility of the intelligence facilities. The grading process also involved careful attention to the film's contrast levels and black points, ensuring that the handheld camera work and rapid editing wouldn't result in visual confusion. The goal was to create images that felt raw and immediate, with the texture of documentary footage, while maintaining enough clarity that action could be followed and important visual information would register with audiences. Music integration occurred during the later stages of post-production, with composer John Powell's score being mixed with the film's dense sound design. Powell had composed the scores for all three Bourne films, developing a distinctive musical voice for the franchise that blended electronic elements, orchestral percussion, and innovative sound design. His work on the Bourne Ultimatum would represent the culmination of musical ideals he had been developing across the trilogy. Test screenings played a role in refining the final cut, with audiences providing feedback on pacing, clarity, and emotional impact. While Greengrass and Rouse had a clear vision for the film, test audience responses helped identify moments where the rapid cutting might have sacrificed too much clarity or where emotional beats needed additional emphasis. Minor adjustments were made based on this feedback, though the overall editorial approach remained consistent with the filmmaker's original vision. The post-production period also involved ADR, automated dialogue replacement, sessions where actors re-recorded dialogue that had been unclear or affected by location sound issues during filming. Matt Damon and other cast members returned to the recording studio to loop specific lines, ensuring that all dialogue was intelligible despite the aggressive sound mix. This process required careful attention to matching the performance energy and emotional tone of the original footage. Final mixing occurred in state-of-the-art facilities, with the sound team balancing dialogue, sound effects, and music across multiple channels to create an immersive theatrical experience. The mix for the Bourne Ultimatum pushed the boundaries of dynamic range, with quiet, tense moments contrasting sharply with explosive action sequences. This wide dynamic range was designed to keep audiences on edge, using sound to manipulate tension and release throughout the film. As post-production neared completion, the filmmakers worked with the MPAA to secure a PG-13 rating that would allow the widest possible theatrical audience while maintaining the franchise's edge. This required careful balancing of the film's violence, which needed to feel consequential and brutal without crossing into graphic territory. The editing and sound design were calibrated to suggest impact and violence without lingering on graphic injury, achieving intensity through implication and reaction rather than explicit depiction. The final color timing, sound mix, and visual effects integration were completed mere weeks before the film's premiere, with the post-production team working extended hours to meet Universal Pictures' release date. The compressed schedule reflected both the studio's confidence in the material and the competitive pressures of the summer release calendar. Despite the time constraints, the finished film represented a technical and artistic achievement that would be recognized by numerous award bodies, including the Academy Awards. Music. The musical score for the Bourne Ultimatum, composed by John Powell, represents the culmination of a sonic identity that Powell had been developing across all three films in the franchise. Powell's work on the Bourne trilogy had established a distinctive sound that blended orchestral and electronic elements, created innovative percussive textures, and employed unconventional compositional techniques that perfectly complemented Paul Greengrass's visual style. For the final installment, Powell sought to expand upon these established musical ideas while also providing emotional closure to Bourne's journey. Powell's approach to scoring the Bourne Ultimatum was fundamentally different from traditional action film composition. Rather than employing sweeping orchestral themes or bombastic brass fanfares typical of the genre, Powell created a score that emphasized rhythm, texture, and electronic manipulation. The music functions almost as another layer of sound design, blurring the line between musical score and environmental sound in a way that enhances the film's documentary-like realism. The percussion in Powell's Bourne scores had always been distinctive, employing found sounds, metallic clangs, and processed acoustic drums to create aggressive, propulsive rhythms. For Ultimatum, Powell expanded this percussive vocabulary even further, recording sessions with multiple percussion players who struck various metal objects, industrial materials, and unconventional instruments. These recordings were then processed electronically, time-stretched, pitch-shifted, and layered to create complex rhythmic beds that drive the action sequences. One of the score's most recognizable elements is the use of electronic pulses and synthesizer tones that create a sense of technological omnipresence, reinforcing the film's themes of surveillance and the inescapability of the intelligence apparatus. These electronic elements are not melodic in the traditional sense but instead create textural layers and rhythmic patterns that build tension and momentum. The electronic components of the score reflect the CIA's technological superiority while also suggesting the dehumanizing effect of the intelligence system on both its operatives and its targets. The melodic content in Powell's Bourne scores is deliberately understated, with thematic material emerging gradually and organically rather than being overtly stated. The main Bourne theme, which had appeared in various forms throughout the trilogy, receives its most complete and emotionally direct statement in Ultimatum during the scenes where Jason finally recovers his full identity and memories. This restraint and melodic deployment makes the moments when melody does emerge all the more powerful, as they represent brief glimpses of humanity and emotion within the mechanical, relentless world of intelligence operations. String writing in the score often employs extended techniques, including col legno, striking the strings with the wooden part of the bow, harmonics, and aggressive bowing patterns that create abrasive, unsettling textures. The string section functions less as a source of romantic melody and more as a generator of tension and dissonance, with sustained tones and clustered harmonies creating a sense of unease that permeates even the film's quieter moments. This approach to orchestral writing was still relatively unusual in mainstream action cinema in 2007, and Powell's work on the Bourne franchise would influence numerous subsequent action film scores. The brass section in Powell's orchestration is used sparingly but effectively, with muted trumpets and trombones creating menacing, aggressive tones during confrontational moments. Rather than the heroic brass fanfares common in action films, Powell's brass writing emphasizes dissonance and tension, with harsh, blouting tones that suggest danger and institutional power. This unconventional use of brass reinforces the film's morally ambiguous world where there are no clear heroes or simple victories. Recording sessions for the score took place in London, utilizing some of the world's finest orchestral musicians. Powell worked with engineer Dominic Lewis to capture the acoustic performances, which were then processed and manipulated digitally during the mixing phase. This hybrid approach, combining the warmth and expressiveness of live acoustic performance with the precision and manipulability of digital technology, allowed Powell to create a score that felt both human and mechanistic, organic and precise, qualities that perfectly mirrored Jason Bourne's own existence as a man transformed into a living weapon. The score's integration with the film's sound design was carefully coordinated between Powell, sound designers Karen Baker-Landers and Per Hallberg, and director Paul Greengrass. In many sequences, it's difficult to distinguish where the sound design ends and the musical score begins, as both employ similar sonic palettes and textural approaches. This seamless integration between score and sound design creates a unified sonic experience that immerses audiences in Bourne's world without the traditional separation between music and effects. In addition to Powell's original score, the film also features Extreme Ways by Moby, which had served as the closing credits song for all three Bourne films. For Ultimatum, Moby created a new version of the song, subtitled Bourne Ultimatum, which maintained the track's essential character while updating its production and arrangement. The song had become so closely associated with the franchise that its appearance during the closing credits provided a sense of continuity and completion, a musical signature that bookended the trilogy. The soundtrack album, released by Varitilde Diaris's Saraband, presented selections from Powell's score, though due to the integrated nature of the music and sound design, the album versions of some cues were slightly different from how they appeared in the film. The album allowed listeners to appreciate the compositional sophistication and textural richness of Powell's work, though the true impact of the score could only be fully experienced within the context of the film itself, where music, sound design, and visuals combined to create a unified sensory experience. Powell's work on the Bourne Ultimatum received significant recognition from the film music community, though it was divisive among traditional film score enthusiasts who preferred more melodically driven and conventionally orchestrated works. However, the score's influence on subsequent action film music has been profound, with many composers adopting similar approaches to rhythm, texture, and electronic acoustic integration. The Bourne sound, as established and perfected by Powell across the trilogy, became one of the defining musical aesthetics of 21st century action cinema. Released theatrical. The theatrical release strategy for the Bourne Ultimatum was carefully orchestrated by Universal Pictures to maximize both critical impact and commercial success. The studio had considerable confidence in the film based on strong test screening results and the established popularity of the franchise, but the summer movie season is intensely competitive, requiring precise timing and marketing execution to achieve breakout success. The film's world premiere took place at ArcLight Hollywood in Los Angeles on July 25, 2007, a high-profile event attended by the cast, filmmakers, and numerous entertainment industry figures. The premiere generated significant media coverage and early buzz, with attendees praising the film as a worthy conclusion to the trilogy and potentially the best installment yet. This early positive word of mouth would prove crucial in building anticipation for the film's wider release. Universal Pictures scheduled a wide theatrical release for August 3, 2007, a strategic date that positioned the film in the late summer period when competition from major tentpole releases had somewhat diminished. This timing was calculated to allow the Bourne Ultimatum to dominate theaters during a period when audiences were still seeking theatrical experiences but had fewer major options. The August release date also avoided direct competition with the summer's biggest franchise installments that had been released. Review, One The Bourne Ultimatum, 2007, is the third installment in the Jason Bourne film series, directed by Paul Greengrass and starring Matt Damon as the amnesiac former CIA assassin. Widely regarded as one of the strongest entries in the series, this film continues the high-stakes cat-and-mouse game between Bourne and the CIA, ramping up the tension, pacing, and emotional resonance. The film picks up immediately after the events of the Bourne Supremacy, 2004, with Jason Bourne wounded and on the run in Moscow. The tone is gritty, raw, and immediate, with Bourne trying to stay one step ahead of those still hunting him. He narrowly escapes the Russian police and continues his journey to uncover the truth about his identity and the CIA programs that created him. Waterloo Station, a masterclass in tension. One of the most iconic sequences in the film takes place at London's Waterloo Station. Bourne contacts journalist Simon Ross, Paddy Considine, who is investigating a black ops program called Black Briar, an offshoot of the original Treadstone project. The sequence turns into a high-stakes chess game as Bourne guides Ross through the station via earpiece, trying to help him avoid CIA surveillance. It ends tragically with Ross being shot by a CIA asset, showing the ruthless efficiency of Bourne's enemies and the personal risks involved. Discovering Black Briar, Bourne continues his search for answers. Tracking down more people involved with Black Briar, he reconnects with Nikki Parsons, Julia Stiles, a former Treadstone handler. Their alliance is more than just professional. Hints of a deeper past relationship add complexity to their interactions. Nikki helps Bourne evade capture and points him toward Madrid. Then Tangier Chase, the physical peak in Tangier. Bourne pursues another CIA asset, Dish, who is attempting to eliminate Nikki. This sequence showcases some of the most breathtaking chase and fight scenes in the series, culminating in a brutal apartment fight where Bourne kills Dish in hand-to-hand combat. This section highlights Bourne's increasing moral conflict. He's not just surviving, but choosing who he wants to be. Facing the source, Dr. Hirsch in The Truth. The final act leads Bourne to New York City, where he finally confronts Dr. Albert Finney, the man behind the Treadstone project. Bourne learns that he voluntarily joined the program, essentially giving up his former identity, David Webb, to become the emotionless asset known as Jason Bourne. This shatters the notion that he was simply a victim and introduces the theme of personal accountability. Sent viral right now. The climax takes place at 415 East 71st Street in Manhattan, the facility where Bourne was created. As Bourne confronts his past, CIA Deputy Director Noah Vosen, David Strathairn, and CIA Director Pamela Landy, Joan Allen, are in pursuit. Bourne, ever resourceful, escapes yet again, this time leaping from the rooftop into the East River after being shot. Pamela Landy, moved by Bourne's humanity and realizing the corruption within the agency, faxes documents exposing Black Briar to the authorities. As Bourne sinks into the water, flashbacks of his induction play. He remembers everything now. Then, in a quiet, poetic moment, we hear a news report stating that Jason Bourne's body was never recovered and that he was last seen swimming away. Moby's Extreme Ways kicks in, marking a signature end to a Bourne film. This ending offers both closure and the suggestion that Bourne, now fully self-aware, might finally live freely, though the scars of his past remain. Are there post-credits scenes? No, the Bourne Ultimatum does not have any post-credits scenes. Once the movie ends with Moby's iconic track and the image of Bourne disappearing into the water, that's it. The story is fully concluded in the runtime. Although future installments, The Bourne Legacy in Jason Bourne, do revisit the universe type of movie. This is a spy thriller and action movie with strong elements of psychological drama and political conspiracy. It's grounded, realistic, and known for its handheld camera style and tight, fast-paced editing. Matt Damon as Jason Bourne, David Webb, Julia Stiles as Nikki, Parsons, David Strathairn as Noah, Vosen, Joan Allen as Pamela, Landy, Albert Finney as Dr. Albert, Hirsch, Paddy, Considine as Simon Ross, Scott Glenn as CIA Director, Ezra, Kramer. Film music and composer. The score was composed by John Powell, whose music became an essential part of the Bourne identity. His blend of tense orchestral pieces and electronic rhythms perfectly supports the film's high energy, globe-trotting pace. The end credits once again feature Moby's Extreme Ways, which became a recurring musical theme for the franchise. Filming locations. The movie was shot in numerous international locations, enhancing its global espionage feel. London. The Waterloo Station sequence is a highlight. Madrid, Spain. Tangier, Morocco. Known for the stunning rooftop chase. New York City. Key scenes at the CIA headquarters and final confrontation. Berlin and Paris. Additional scenes set in Bourne's past. These diverse urban landscapes underscore Bourne's constant movement and his need to stay ahead of global surveillance. Awards and nominations. It was also nominated and awarded at the BAFTAs, and won multiple critics and technical awards, especially for editing and sound design. Behind-the-scenes insights. Matt Damon trained in Filipino Kali and boxing for the fight scenes. The Waterloo scene took over 6 weeks to shoot, often using real commuters as extras. Director Paul Greengrass favored handheld cameras and real locations to heighten realism. Damon was reportedly reluctant to return at first but was convinced after reading the script. The rooftop jump was performed with a combination of stunt work and wire rigs. The film is loosely based on Robert Ludlum's novel of the same name, although the plot diverges significantly. While the book continues the espionage theme, the movie focuses more on closure and the emotional toll of being an assassin. Alternate endings and deleted scenes. A few deleted scenes were included in the DVD extras, mainly extended dialogue and exposition, but no major alternate endings exist. One scene shows more of Nikki's emotional conflict, hinting more explicitly at a past romantic relationship with Bourne, but it was cut for pacing. Book adaptations and differences. While the movie takes its title from Ludlum's book, the plot is almost entirely different. The book involves Carlos the Jackal, who is not mentioned in the film. The Bourne of the novels is more calculating and less haunted. The movie's version is more emotionally conflicted and grounded in real-world geopolitics. Memorable scenes and quotes. Waterloo Station sequence. Rooftop chase in Tangier. Bourne silent confrontation with Dr. Hirsch. Final rooftop escape and plunge into the river. Pamela, Landy reading out David Webb's real birth date over the phone. I remember everything. Bourne's chilling realization. This is Jason Bourne. He's still alive. Vosen, upon learning Bourne's location. You're in a big puddle of SHT, Pamela, and you don't have the shoes for it. Noah. Vosen. Easter eggs and hidden details. The birth date Pamela Landy gives for David Webb is actually Matt Damon's real birthday. Many of the CIA agents seen on screens are real staffers or journalists used as extras. The file titled Black Prior includes references to Treadstone operatives from previous films. Matt Damon has only 25 lines of dialogue in the first 30 minutes of the movie. The film's handheld camera work sparked both acclaim and controversy. Some viewers felt motion sickness. It grossed over $440 million, the most of any Bourne film at that time. Why watch? Because it's arguably the best spy thriller of the 2000s. The Bourne Ultimatum delivers intelligent writing, relentless pacing, tight action sequences, and a humanized hero with a soul. It's not just about car chases and fights. It's about identity, morality, and agency over one's life. Review. To inciting event. After escaping Moscow, Bourne sees an article about himself by London reporter Simon Ross. He contacts Ross and asks to meet at Waterloo Station. For all intents and purposes, there is no new conflict in this story. It picks up directly following the end of Bourne's supremacy. Bourne's new goals are basically continuations of those in previous film, with the new addition of his desire to discover the truth about his memories of being inducted into the Treadstone program. Ross is his first clue to finding someone who knows the truth. First plot point. CIA Assistant Director Noah Vosen stakes out Waterloo Station and has Simon Ross shot, despite Bourne's best efforts to keep him alive. Bourne takes Ross's papers, which offer clues about Ross's contact Neil Daniels, a Blackbriar agent in Madrid. Bourne then clashes with CIA asset Paz and escapes. Because the story basically already started deep into its conflict, there really isn't a tremendously clear delineation between normal world and main conflict here. However, this is where Vosen first encounters Bourne and their personal showdown begins. First pinch point. Bourne discovers Daniel's Madrid safe house has been cleaned out. Vosen sends operatives after him. Nikki, Bourne's former handler, arrives first and covers for him. They escape together. This isn't a tremendous pinch, but it does provide a solid turning point in the plot. Midpoint. Bourne and Nikki follow Daniels to Tangier, where he is assassinated by another operative, Deesh. Bourne kills Deesh, leaving the CIA to believe he and Nikki are both dead. Again, not a great midpoint. It doesn't strongly turn the story from reaction to action, mostly because Bourne has been in control of the conflict from the start. Second pinch point. From here on, the plot points become pretty indistinct. The major pinch point happening here is aimed more at Landy, who is subtly opposing Vosen's search for Bourne. Vosen and CIA Director Ezra Kramer plot to blame Blackbriar on Landy if it goes south. Meanwhile, Bourne contemplates the nature of himself and laments to Nikki that he can still see the faces of all those he ever killed. He tells her she, too, will now have to go on the run while he returns home to discover how he came to be inducted into Treadstone. Third plot point. After a manic car chase through NYC, Bourne crashes into Paz's car. Even though Paz survives, Bourne makes the choice not to kill him and instead walks away, headed back to discover his origins. There's no low point to be found here, mostly because Bourne isn't on much of an emotional journey in this story. Climax. Bourne tracks down Dr. Albert Hirsch, the mastermind behind Treadstone and Bourne's own brainwashing. During the confrontation, Bourne finally remembers his induction and the techniques Hirsch used to break his mind. Climactic moment. While escaping, Bourne encounters Paz on the rooftop. Paz demands to know why Bourne didn't kill him when he had the chance. He doesn't shoot, but just as Bourne is jumping off the roof into the water, Vosen appears and shoots him in the back. Resolution. Landy exposes Blackbriar to Greengrass. Nikki, in hiding, hears a report that Bourne's body is missing and she knows he has survived. Notes. This installment in the Bourne trilogy is far weaker than the previous two films for the simple reason that Bourne has no arc. The wonderful interiority of the first two stories is relegated almost entirely to the background here. The structure also suffers as a result, since it struggles to maintain a balance of high and low moments, victories and defeats. Another aspect of this problem is the fact that Bourne is largely cast in the antagonist role. He is the one in control of and driving the conflict from the very beginning, with the CIA operatives scrambling to keep up with him. This is actually an interesting twist, since, from a certain perspective, Bourne is the bad guy in these films. However, whatever it gains originality, it loses in emotional power, since audiences care far less about the emotional journeys of Vosen and Landy than they do of Bourne himself. Sign up to receive KM Wallen's e-letter and receive her free e-book Crafting Unforgettable Characters, a hands-on introduction to bringing your characters to life. Review. 3 Though he's apparently open to reprise the role of Jason Bourne in the future, Matt Damon is not mincing words about his last appearance as the character in 2007's Bourne Ultimatum. Photos. Matt Damon at the We Bought a Zoo premiere. The 41-year-old actor, next seen in Cameron Crowe's We Bought a Zoo, revisited the subject of his famous action franchise in a recent interview with GQ. In short, he was not a fan of the script, and in addition to calling out Tony Gilroy, he blames Universal for giving the screenwriter a sweetheart deal that only required one draft from him. It's really the studio's fault for putting themselves in that position, Damon tells GQ. I don't blame Tony for taking a boatload of money and handing in what he handed in. It's just that it was unreadable. This is a career ender. I mean, I could put this thing up on eBay and it would be game over for that dude. It's terrible. It's really embarrassing. He was having a go, basically, and he took his money and left. Damon doesn't have it in for Gilroy, though. He actually felt bad for his comments before the interview was even printed, following up with the writer to preemptively clear things up. Photos. Matt Damon and Ben Affleck say Good Will Hunting house and other Hollywood real estate deals. If I didn't respect him and appreciate his talent, then I really wouldn't have cared, Damon said, referring to Gilroy. My feelings were hurt, that's all. And that's exactly why I shouldn't have said anything. This is between me and him. So saying anything publicly is fucking stupid and unprofessional and just kind of douchey of me. Gilroy takes on the role of director in this fourth Bourne film, which sees Jeremy Renner stepping into the lead role, and Damon added that he's really pulling for it to do well. Even though I don't have anything to do with it, he said. Selfishly, it's bad for me if that movie doesn't do well. Universal issued a statement, showing support for both Damon and Gilroy. We could not imagine replacing Matt as Jason Bourne, which is why we're so excited. Tony's script creates a fantastic new character in the Bourne legacy and also leaves open the option for Matt to return a broken bar. Tony has done everything we've asked of him on each of the Bourne films, and his work has been a huge asset to the franchise.